Either way, Bernarda began making her way up the staircase, and a smile formed on her lips as slight noises were heard. But they sounded a bit unholy. No, her ears were malfunctioning. Ten would never cheat on her with any whore. Brina was the curviest she-wolf throughout the university, not to talk of the prettiest. Still, she began walking slowly and almost noiselessly towards the room. The door was even opened widely. The noises turned to moans and sexual grunts. Brenda, little by little, thrived in standing at the door without being detected, but the scene she beheld was TT10. The raucousness of Brenda's voice arguably could be heard by every being in the university and beyond. Her porcelain skin turned to that of a frown corpse, and the shock that engulfed her got her body trembling. The flowers fell from her grip, and as the two pair of eyes glanced at her, the two guys knew they were fucked. Brenda, listen, you've been fucking your roommate 10. You've been cheating on me, but with a guy, Damon. The bastard that you've sucked up to. You've been sucking balls too. It truly did hurt, and her brown eyes became cold. And no, Brenda, he is my mate, okay? The moon goddess fated us 2 years back, and I apologize for not telling you. Ten's words settled back into his throat as Brenda unhesitatingly used the cake she spent so much effort baking as a rock. She threw it straight at his face and then glared with red, furious eyes at Damon. Brenda, fuck you both. Fucking screw you. With that, Brenda rushed out of there with tears rolling down her eyes. Their kneecaps were kissing the tiled floor of her bedroom with their heads lowered at it. Remorse but not regret lingered strongly in their bodies, and for almost a minute, silence reigned supreme. The hurt, betrayal, and sadness of her soul had lessened over 2 hours, and unlike before, she grabbed the opportunity to apologize. Both of them. 10 isn't her mate, which means she will be getting her mate tonight. The moon goddess fating you two together doesn't grant y'all jackasses the right to toy with me, Damon. You were the counselor in my relationship with 10. I thought advices were the only thing you gave to him who knew BJs were involved. Brenda, please. Damon lifted his teary eyes to gaze at her. He was the frail type of werewolf. He was timid, but loving, and a conservative soul to be around with. It'd be hard for any to stay mad at him, but what he and 10 done to her. We wanted to tell you 10 did, but I am so sorry. I was scared as always in coming out as gay. I was afraid everyone would be homophobic, and you thought that about me too, Damon. We read Blell novels together, and you think I am homophobic. Brenda scrawled at him, and Damon sniffed. Forgive us, Brenda. She glanced at 10, and just like the same person he has been over the years, was gawking remorsefully at her. She genuinely loves him, but it wasn't meant to be, clearly. 10, I am going to forgive you. I forgive you for the things you've done right for me throughout the years. I won't hold a grudge for the one thing you've done wrong. I am hurt, but I want your happiness, and Damon's too. So enjoy yourselves as mates. Besides, in a few hours she will be having her wolf and mate. Brenda, get in already. The tiny voice of Damon ended her chat with Carolina. She glanced behind. Halting on the road was a car. 10 and Damon were in it, and they were waiting for Brenda. Their voyage to the Royal Heart Pack had to begin today. So by tomorrow, they'd be at the Royal Palace. Since today was also Brenda's 20th birthday, and she'd properly shift on that day too. You are going with those homos, Carolina? Most like numerous beings in the university, snarled at the sight of the gay mates, 10 and Damon. After 10 had things ended by Brenda, she encouraged them to come out, and she has been by their side, giving her support. 10 supported her throughout the years. It was her turn now. Stop it, Carolina. Brenda flashed her a glare, and she shrugged shortly. Brenda waved her goodbye, and then walked straight to the car. Her luggage had already been taken into the car by 10, and she insisted on baiting Carolina before leaving. Regardless of her breakup with 10, they were still friends, and she loved it. Heck, both were like her brothers. Brenda sat in the back seat. No, she laid on it and was smiling so brightly, and Damon turned to her. Excited? Fuck yeah. I am going to get my wolf today, and then get my mate. I can't freaking wait. Did y'all smell that? Once the tires of the Maybach rolled out of Locke's University's entrance gate that also served as an exit, she questioned. Brina, who was lying comfortably in the back seat, abruptly sat upright as her eyes darted from one place to another. Smelled what? Damon tore his gaze from the book in his possession, then glanced backward. but surprisingly beheld the brown-haired she-wolf gazing outside the window of the moving car. What was wrong with her? "Brina, what is the matter?" he asked, a bit worriedly by this peculiar behavior. He was gawking at her through the rear-view mirror, and for almost a minute, she was mute. A second before the car would completely leave the university's gate, her nostrils undoubtedly inhaled the sweetest fragrance ever, one that she throughout her last 19 years of living has never inhaled before. It was divine, and her body sincerely moved on its own. What or who owned such a scent? Brene eventually settled on her seat and then sighed. She was disappointed, but instantly determined to find wheresoever that scent came from. Aside, "Nothing's gonna ruin my mood. Today, I am going to get my wolf, then a mate." It was sunny already when the black Maybach halted in front of a building synonymous with exquisite. Aside from its jaw-dropping largeness, the castle-like building surely must have been established with a mind-blogging amount of cash. And whoever did its design was a genius. "Welcome back, Lady Brina." Infusion, the maid standing in a straight line greeted then bowed. It earned a simple smile from her, and the sounds of the male servants aiding Ten in taking their luggage caught her attention. He wasn't a stranger here, and both smiled at each other. "Come on already, Damon. I'll introduce you to my parents. Ten knows his way round here." The instant the frail glass-wearing guy stepped out of the car, Brina held his hand. Wait, I am not dressed properly to meet His Royal Highness and Majesty." She was having none of it and continuously pulled him through the red carpet that was laid out for her return. At the end of it stood the ruler of the nation's most prestigious pack, Levi Hendricks, and his dearly beloved wife, Selena Hendrick. Both are dressed royally elegant. They retained their spots and smiled sweetly as their daughter approached them with an unknown guy in her hand. Was he her mate? "I missed you so much," she muttered into the hug, and done sharing one with her father, properly introduced Damon. He was overwhelmed by their presence, but felt a bit eased by Ten's presence. He assumed the atmosphere would be a bit awkward since Brenda and Ten were dating according to her parents. But the Alpha's daughter shocked them. Brenda inhaled hard, then ruffled her brown hair, nervously. Today should please go well. The Pack's amphitheater has never looked so gorgeous before. They showered her with love excessively, and after the whole day, it was time to step into the amphitheater. The Pack's populace was in attendance. Every single werewolf of the Royal Heart Pack was seated across the uncountable seats, each awaiting to watch the magical transformation of the Alpha's daughter. The Alpha and his wife were seated at the highest seat of the amphitheater, but both had the best view. They couldn't wait to see their daughter's wolf. The full moon was almost out, and as the dark clouds shifted for it to shine, she strolled in. Cladded in the traditional white cloak, Brenda was the sole one walking in the area of the amphitheater, while the rest watched from their seats. "She is so beautiful," Damon muttered sweetly from his seat, and Ten nodded in approval. Silence. Once Brenda stood there and rid herself of the cloak. The silk armless dress she wore came into view, and her eyes were gawking at the moon. Slowly, the clouds paved the way for it, and the full moon came into view. Everyone held their breaths, their eyes entailed ultimate anticipation, and hearts thudding expectantly. The moon's rays were now shining directly on Brenda, and she was alone for almost 3 minutes yet. "Nothing's happening," she muttered then, gazed around. Her eyes fell on her parents, and her mother was already in tears. Mutters that contained disappointed words were heard from different angles, and Brenda began trembling. "Please, Thursday, this can't be." Those eyes of hers poured out profuse tears, and her body began its tremble. "Goddess, please, please." Brenda gazed directly at the moon, yet it lingered there, mocking her with her body doing nothing. No, almost 10 minutes went by yet. Not a single change occurred in her, and as she ran out, the chants were heard. "She is wolfless. What a disgrace. Shameful, shameful. She is such an eyesore. I am empathetic, but towards a wolfless thing. The daughter of His Royal Highness doesn't have a wolf. Is that even possible? She has royal blood, but not a wolf. Her Royal Majesty got some explaining to do." The uncountable opinions elicited from the lips of many were centered on one thing: Brenda Hendricks's wolflessness. It was uncommon, it was unheard of, and so discomforting and shameful. But none were ashamed of Brenda more than her very own parents. Their child undebatably was passing through hellish agony and pain caused by. If there was anyone that could pacify her at that moment, then it'd be 10. They were no longer lovers, but each had thrived in securing a special place in each other's hearts. He ran straight to her room after that peculiar failure, and currently, Brenda was in his arms, crying her heart out. She was trembling so hard underneath him, and her temperature was rising with every second. I am such a failure, 10. I am a fucking disgrace to everyone, she cried bitterly, and he quietly stroked her hair. You are not. Stop saying shit like that. Not having a wolf isn't. It is not a curse. It just means that you are overly unique, and Brenda, I know you are gonna pull through with this bullshit. You'll live. The barbaric rain of rumbles on her door jolted both from the bed. It took less than a minute before the door was kicked open, and several guards rushed in. What is happening? Stay behind me. Tin stood and undoubtedly was going to protect her from whatever crap was about to transpire. Nothing, and nobody was allowed to harm her when he was around. By the orders of His Highness, we are here to take Miss Brenda back to the amphitheater for her judgment. One of the guards declared without batting any eyelashes, and Tin growled at him. What rubbish are y'all fucking talking about? Judgment. Being wolfless now meant she committed an offense or something. Fuck y'all. Tin was ready to throw hands, and so were they. Alpha Levi ordered this, and Brenda knew Tin wouldn't survive a beating from so many of the guards. He was stubborn as hell too, so backing down wasn't going to happen. She does appreciate his support more than anything, and doesn't want him to continuously get hurt because of her. 10. I am not worth this. Brenda stood from the bed, then stepped forward. Even her steps were shaky and unsteady. Brenda, no. I am not worth anything. I don't even have a wolf. Fighting for someone like me is a waste of time. She went to the guards and unhesitatingly was grabbed roughly. Brenda, get your hands off her. Ten hurled at one, but she blocked his path before he'd hurt any. If he does, then her father will punish him. Brenda, his eyes were filled with anger, and his helplessness in this situation irked him out so badly. I'll receive any judgment, so please, stay out of this. The mean, disgusted, and overly judgmental glares from the pack's populace contradicted their earlier ones that were filled with happiness and gleeful anticipation as Brenda was led in. Again, she was in the amphitheater, and unlike before, her teary self was standing in front of her once loving parents. Her mother wasn't present, her father was, and his eyes held no emotions, talk more or less of mercy for his daughter. Father, silence, do not call me that, you wolfless bastard. Levi's voice boomed throughout the gathered masses, and most whispered in shock. With the Luna absent and the Alpha's words, does that mean Brenda wasn't his child? Well, it made sense. How could an Alpha so compelling birth someone like this? She was already crying, and with her head bowed and knees on the ground, Levi declared, there is no room for a pathetic being such as you anywhere, maybe in hell, but not in my pack. Brenda, I, Alpha Levi Hendricks, banish you from the Royal Heart Pack. Could she sincerely blame her parents for rejecting her? Brenda couldn't. Which sane person would want to be entangled with an abomination as such as herself? Tears flowed endlessly down her freckle-covered cheeks, and the low sobs escaping her lips got the guard glancing at her. For the first time in her life, Brenda wished to walk instead of dwelling in the luxury of a car. Who'd want to sit in a car when everyone was simply judging you? It felt suffocating and overly challenging to breathe. Brenda was trembling crazily, and the guard by her side snickered. You are not so cocky, are you now, Brenda? Ha, the famous princess of His Majesty's Wolfless. His mocking laughter was heart-wrenching, and the others sitting at the front also joined in. Levi Hendricks, the same being she has referred to as father throughout her existence, just banished her. She does understand his standpoint, yet it doesn't diminish the pain. Brenda wasn't opportune to even meet her mother one last time before a couple of guards grabbed her. 10 had to be held back by some guards as she was taken into this car. They were driving her to an abandoned pathway that served as an exit for those banished. Brenda was certain the air around here was repulsively different, yet the guards unhesitatingly shoved her out. It was abrupt, so she landed harshly on the cracking tarred road. Her knees bled instantly, and her eyes were becoming short of tears. See you never, princess. The hurtful taunts from the guards were heard, and obnoxiously enough, the tires of the car poured excess dust on Brenda. She could only sit on the spot and cry helplessly, and as if the world truly was against her, the night clouds rumbled raucously. Before she could glance at it, innumerable rain droplets poured heavily on her, being someone who was immensely intolerable to cold. It'd be disastrous if she lingered under the rain much longer. Where do I go from here? Brenda dragged herself weakly from the ground, then glanced around. This was like a ghost town, since no breathing being could be spotted. Still, she couldn't go back. She no longer had a home. And so Brenda began dragging her feet through the deserted pathway as the heavy downpour persisted. Sobbing. The usual Mr. Ian? His response was a simple head nod, and the bartender turned to the shelves that housed numerous drinks. He picked a bottle of margarita and soon poured it out for the dark-haired, handsome 30-year-old. His jade green eyes added so immeasurably to his gorgeous face, and as he gulped down the content of his drink, could hear the sounds of violent raindrops clashing with the roof. It was raining hard. Ian's eyes, now gawking at the wooden floor, bore deep contemplation. For someone who was drawing closer to his early 30s, his matelessness was annoyingly frustrating. Every normal wolf was bestowed with a mate whenever they were 18 or in some unusual circumstances, at 20. But he, the soon-to-be Alpha King, was 30 frigging years, yet the moon goddess has failed to give him a mate. It was hurtful, especially when his father refuses to give up the throne until he gets fated. Fuck. Ian once again gulped down immense content from his margarita, and as the harsh alcoholic drink burned through his gullet, the bar's door was pushed open. All eyes went to her, and at the sight of Brenda Hendricks, he diverted his gaze nonchalantly. Isn't she one of your students, Ian? You are a lecturer at Locke's University, and that is Brenda Hendricks, right? She is. And so, fuck that. Ian cut the bartender off coldly. He was done with his drink. He arose from the high stool, paid his bills, and was about to leave when a sudden weight fell on him. His clothes became soaked and, regardless of the abruptness, caught the figure. His hands held the sides of her slender waist carefully. The hell? Ian snarled at Brenda, who was already unconscious. Her body, although drenched, was hot as fuck, and clearly, she wasn't okay. You should take care of her, Ian. She is pretty, and those fuckers would love to get their hands on her. The bartender uttered, and he spared those drinking just a glance to realize that was true. He wasn't a gentleman himself, but it was better than letting one of these fuckers that were already eye-raping her touch her. Ian growled lowly and swiftly scooped Brenda off the floor. She was thoroughly drenched, and without minding, stepped out of the bar with her in his arms. The downpour persisted, but fortunately, he brought his car. Shortly, and after positioning Brenda properly on the front seat, began the drive back to his penthouse close to Locke's University. What is an alpha's daughter doing in the rain? Ian mumbled as he spared her a glance, and shockingly, tears slid down her shut lids. What happened to her? He mumbled, then reached to wipe the tears off. Dubai, how the hell do I get her to take this? Ian could be seen holding a pill in his hand while his eyes gaped at Brenda. She was yet to regain consciousness, and due to how crazily high her temperature was, he had to take care of her. Changing her wet clothes to normal ones was far from easy, since it took a lot of willpower to avoid gawking at her nude body for now. She was clothed in one of his t-shirt and joggers. Again, Brenda laid in his bed, tucked comfortably in his sheets, and was now being stared questioningly at. She was undeniably sick, and leaving her like that would be unwise. Ian does have some pills to lessen her temperature, but who the fuck was he going to do that when she is asleep? Fuck this. Irritated, he attempted to stand up, but his wrist was caught. Glancing at Brenda again, she was moderately awake. Her breaths were ragged, and the redness of her cheeks was highly arousing. Brenda had her brown hair scattered all over her face, and she appeared effortlessly beautiful. You are awake, great. Now take this. Suddenly, she pulled him towards her, and thankfully, Ian was quick enough to regain his balance. He didn't fall on her, but the pills fell to the floor, and presently, their faces were so close to each other. His knees were sunk into the bed, and his hands placed above her head on the pillow. Mr. Ian? Brenda called in a low, cute voice, and he nearly scoffed. She was one of his most unserious students, and this would be the first time ever she'd be sounding so polite. Miss Hendricks, you... Don't call me that. I shouldn't call you that. Or what? You know I've never met an impolite child like you, Miss Hendricks, and you are. His lips were tempting. Brenda, laying underneath him, watched with droopy eyes as Ian kept babbling. She never noticed the good looks of her lecturer, but being this close to him, her body moved on its own. And you are... Ian's lips finally became shut as a fierce, deep kiss met it. His eyes widened in immense shock, and about to push her away, felt her legs being entangled around his waist. Brenda's arms were hung over his shoulder and disengaging from the kiss. Her tears came into view. Can we do this? Palal, please. Ian swallowed emptiness at the sight of Brenda, pleading underneath him. Her expression was innocently lewd, and lust flashed through his green eyes uncontrollably. Brenda, again, she kissed him, and this time he helplessly responded. Her plush lips parted slowly, and he unhesitatingly claimed hers again, now shoving his tongue desirously into her mouth. It was crazy how sultry Brenda's first moan sounded, and his arms went ahead to bring her body closer to his. On his bed, she laid, kissing his unimaginable sweet lips ravishingly. It was senseless of her, yet her body, for some reason, refused to act. With every passing second, his lips devoured hers hungrily. His divine scent clouded her mind. Foodie, and her body became numb. Each needed air, so parting from the kiss. Again, Brenda, breathing a bit heavily, gaped at Ian's face, she flustered by his incomprehensible handsomeness. His piercing gaze didn't, for once, leave the reddened face of the beautiful brown-eyed underneath him. Her slightly swollen lips strangely aroused him more, and as he leaned closer, his monstrous bulge caressed her exposed thighs. Do you want to do this? His words' smoothness sounded far too charming for a mere mortal, as his right hand went straight to the crook of her neck. Steadily, his face deceased upon her flawless neck, and at the sight of her extremely red ears, he smirked. So, shall we continue? The irregular pace at which her heartbeat was heard clearly by Ian, while he awaited his answer. Why, yes, Brenda stuttered, oddly certain about it. A smirk played on his lips before they parted, revealing his sharpened fangs. She gasped. Once a sharp pain was felt at the crook of her neck. Had she just gotten marked by her lecturer? Sudai. That morning, he awoke only for his nostrils to inhale the sweetest scent imaginable. It was crazy how enticing it sent, and as his eyes parted slowly, they beheld Brenda. She laid in his bed with arms and legs snuggling clingily to him, and Ian became confused. The scent was coming from her, and only his mate should possess such a scent. So does this mean? Fuck no, my student's my mate, hell. The leaked photo. The next day, Brenda was sitting in the lecture hall, listening to the new professor's lecture. She recognized his voice immediately, and her heart sank. After the lectures, she wanted to run out of the room before he saw her, but she couldn't move. She was frozen in place, her mind racing with thought and emotions. As the professor turned around, he saw her. Their eyes met. Brenda felt her stomach drop, her legs turning to jelly. The professor was none other than Ian. You, he said, his voice harsh as he pointed at her. What are you doing here? Brina tried to find her voice. Professor Ian, I didn't know you were going to be my teacher, she said, her voice trembling. Please, I don't want to drop out of school. Please don't tell anyone about our incident. He folded his arm, giving her a cold gaze. You think I would be so reckless as to jeopardize my own career just to get you expelled? He asked, his tone sarcastic. I'm not going to say anything, he said, his eyes hard. But you should know that I'm not going to go easy on you in this class. Just because we had an incident doesn't mean I'm going to give you special treatment. You're going to have to work just as hard as everyone else to earn your grade. Brenda felt like she'd been punched in the gut. She knew that Ian was a tough teacher, but she hadn't expected him to be so cold and unforgiving. She wanted to argue, to say that she wasn't expecting him to treat her differently. Yes, sir, I wasn't expecting any special treatment from you, she said, as she tried to control the tremor in her voice. Ian looked at her for a long moment, his face unreadable. I'm glad you understand what I'm saying, so if you excuse me, I have another class, he said as he packed his books and stormed out of the lecture hall, leaving Brenda standing alone in the empty lecture hall. While she walked down the hallway, her mind was filled with thoughts of what Professor Ian had said. She was relieved that she didn't have to drop out of college because of this. The schools strictly stipulate that students and teachers cannot have a romantic relationship. Sava. The next day, the werewolf training class was abuzz with excitement, student pairing off in anticipation of the day's challenges. Yet AMDSD, eager exchanges. Brina found herself standing alone, a wave of frustration washing over her. Seriously, no one wants to partner up with me. Brina's voice held a hint of frustration as she scanned the training ground. Tin shrugged apologetically. It's just rumor, Brina. We're not pursuing anyone. Damon nodded in agreement. Yeah, it's not what you think. With a resigned sigh, Brenna accepted her fate. Guess I'll just have to partner with the professor. Okay, everyone, let's get started, the professor said, clapping his hands together to get everyone's attention. Today, we're going to be working on hand-to-hand combat. Does anyone want to volunteer to be a partner? Brenna raised her hand hesitantly. She wasn't the best at hand-to-hand combat, but she figured it would be good to practice. No one else raised their hand, and the professor's eyes landed on her. Brenna, you'll be my partner, he said, a hint of a smile on his lips. Walking up to the professor, she couldn't help but notice the smirk playing on his lips. Then they started training, and Brenna fought with the professor. While they fought, Ian watched from the side. Suddenly he felt really excited watching Brenna move so well. Whoa, he said quietly, watching her carefully. Despite lacking a werewolf form, Brenna was really strong and smart. Every time she made a move, it surprised Ian. You are not holding back, Professor, Brenna said with a little smile, as she cleverly defended herself from his attacks. Ian felt really impressed. You are strong and smart, amazing, he said, showing he respected her a lot. When the training finished, Brenna felt more confident. Not having a partner isn't so bad, she thought. I can do just fine on my own. When the class ended, Brenna was feeling pretty good about herself. Even though she'd been left partnerless, she'd managed to hold her own during the training. She'd been able to keep up with the other students, even without a wolf form. She was proud of herself. But as she was walking out of the training room, she heard a commotion coming from the common area. Voices were raised, and she could hear people talking about her. Ping, ping, ping. She heard multiple cell phones dinging and saw heads turning towards her as people started whispering. She had a sinking feeling in her stomach as she got closer to the screen, dreading what she would see. And there it was, her photo, with a man standing close together, his arm around her waist. The man's face was blurred, but Brenna's was clear as day. She looked happy, smiling up at the man. The caption underneath read, "Looks like the new Professor Ian has found himself a girlfriend. She is cute, but is she the right fit for our esteemed professor? She's definitely pretty," one student whispered to their friend. "But I can't believe she's hooking up with the professor. Doesn't she know that's against the rules?" "I think it is romantic," another student said. "I mean, forbidden love is the best kind of love, right?" "What a little hussy," one student said, their voice carrying above the others. "She is a home wrecker, a seductress. I bet she has been after the professor the whole time." "There is no way the photo is fake," another student said. "I've never seen a fake photo that looked that real." The room was abuzz with speculations, and Brenna felt sick to her stomach. How had this photo gotten out? Who had sent it to everyone? And why were people speculating that the man was Ian? Unsettled thoughts. Ian was called by the principal to his office. "Knock, knock, knock. Come in," the principal said, his voice heavy with gravity. Ian opened the door and took a seat in front of the principal's desk. He could feel the principal's eyes on him, searching for any sign of guilt or shame. But Ian sat tall and straight, his face set in stone. "Ian, I need to speak with you," the principal said, his voice grave. Ian looked at the principal, his expression unreadable. "What is it, Principal Johnson?" he asked, his voice flat. The principal took a deep breath. "There have been some allegations about your behavior," he said, his hand clapped together. "What kind of allegations?" he asked, his voice sharp. "It has been said that you've been inappropriate with a student," the principal said, shifting uncomfortably. "That is ridiculous," Ian objected, his voice rising as he hit the table, which startled the principal. Principal Johnson's eyes widened and he shrank back in his chair. "Mr. Davies, please calm down," he said, his voice shaking. "I am just trying to get to the bottom of this." "And you will, Professor. Just do what I say. Make the announcement to falsify the rumor." Ian took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. "I don't know who sent and made such nonsense allegation, but I want to tell you that it's completely false. I would never do anything inappropriate with a student." The principal studied Ian's face, looking for any sign of deception. But Ian's face was cold as ice as he was very difficult to read. "I believe you, mister," he said. "I'll make an announcement to the school that it was all a false rumor." Ian nodded in relief. "Thank you, Principal Johnson," he said, the tension leaving his body. "I really appreciate you hearing me out." "Of course," the principal said, giving him a small smile. "I want to make sure all my faculty members are treated fairly." Ian returned the smile. "I do too," he said, Thank you for understanding. The principal stood up and extended his hand. You are very welcome. Ian turned and left the office as the principal prepared to make the announcement about the false rumor going on in the school. As he walked down the hallway, he heard the speaker crackle to life, the principal's voice echoing throughout the school. Attention students and faculty, I have an important announcement to make. It has come to my attention that there has been a rumor circulating about a member of our staff. I want to make it clear that this rumor is not true, and we will not tolerate any such rumors being spread about our staff. Thank you for your attention. Brina, who just left the class, heard the announcement and felt a wave of relief wash over her, as she was scared that if the school had found out, they would have expelled her. As Ian returned to his office, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. That was close, he muttered to himself, as he had been on the brink of being exposed, and it was all because of Brina. His thoughts drifted back to the time when they had been training together, and how strong she was. He had never met anyone with such strength before, and it made him curious. But there was something about Brina that didn't add up. She seemed to be hiding something that he couldn't quite put his finger on, and that bothered him. He knew that the royal family would never allow someone without a wolf to become Luna, and yet here he was, working with someone who didn't have a wolf. He couldn't understand why the moon goddess would match him with someone who wasn't his true mate. It didn't make any sense. He tried to push these thoughts out of his mind as he sat down at his desk. He had a lot of work to do, and he couldn't afford to be distracted. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop thinking about Brina. There was something about her that drew him in, and he couldn't figure out what it was. I am going to reject Brina, he revealed to his wolf. I don't think we should reject her, the wolf opined. There is something off about this whole situation, and we need to figure out what it is. I don't know what you are talking about, Ian said, his voice sharp. She is not our mate, and we shouldn't waste our time on her. You are not thinking clearly, the wolf said, a note of frustration in its voice. There is something more going on here than you realize. Can't you sense it? I can't sense anything, Ian snapped. I've already told you that I don't think she is our mate. And besides, even if she was, I wouldn't want to be mated to someone who is so, I don't know, off. Maybe I should distance myself from Brina, Ian pondered aloud. His inner wolf interjected, Wait, Ian, something feels off about this. We've waited for a mate for so long. Perhaps the moon goddess has a plan. What kind of plan, huh? I don't know, exactly. But I think we should just trust the moon goddess. After all, we've waited for 12 years. We shouldn't expect immediate changes. Ian sighed, trying to process what his wolf was saying. He knew that his wolf was right. They had waited a long time for a mate, and it wouldn't be fair to give up on Brina so quickly. But something about her just didn't feel right. There was something off about her, something that made him feel unease. And he couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something from him. But I can't shake this feeling, Ian admitted, his frustration palpable. What feeling? His inner wolf asked. Ian grumbled under his breath. How can we be expected to trust the moon goddess if we haven't been given a single sign in 12 years? Do you think we should give up on finding a mate altogether? His inner wolf replied, That is not the answer either. Ian, just because it has been 12 years doesn't mean we should give up. I think we should trust the moon goddess. She has got a plan for us, even if we can't see it yet. Ian was unconvinced, but he didn't want to argue with his wolf, so he changed the subject. Let's just talk about something else, okay? Ian said, frustration in his voice as he tried to change the subject. Okay, then what about her closeness to Ten and Damon? Do you think she has feelings for one of them? Ian sighed as he placed his hand over his eyes. I don't know, but I feel uneasy when I see them together. There's something going on that I can't quite put my finger on. Brina's challenges. Bar, what can I get for you? The bartender asked as he looked at Ten and Damon, who were sitting opposite him. We would like some whiskey, please, Ten replied, glancing at Damon for confirmation. Damon nodded in agreement. Yeah, whiskey sounds good. Coming right up, the bartender said with a nod before turning to prepare their drinks. As the bartender began pouring their drinks, Damon turned towards Brina and spoke. So Brina, what's been happening? We've heard some rumors. The bartender paused in his task, briefly glancing at Brina before returning his focus to the drinks. What rumors? Brina asked, shifting uncomfortably. About you and my uncle, Damon said, his face serious. I don't know what you're talking about, she denied, her hands trembling. Don't play dumb, we know about your thing with him, Damon accused as he leaned closer. Come on, Brina, we know something went down. Brina's gaze faltered, her discomfort evident. I don't want any trouble. 10 chimed in, his tone more gentle. We're not here to cause trouble. We just want to know what is going on. Brenna sighed, her shoulders slumping. Okay, fine, she admitted reluctantly. I had a one-night stand, but it wasn't with Ian. Damon's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Then who was it? He pressed, his curiosity piqued. Brenna hesitated, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. I'd rather not say, she muttered, avoiding their eyes. It took her a year to finally accept that her boyfriend and his mate as her brothers. She couldn't possibly tell them about her one-night stand with Damon's uncle. They would go bananas on her. 10, who sensed that Brenna wasn't comfortable with the questions and decided not to ask further questions about it. He exchanged a knowing glance with Damon, but remained silent, respecting Brenna's privacy. However, Damon couldn't resist breaking the silence. So, Brenna, he began, how are you feeling about everything? It must have been quite the experience, he said, winking at her. Brenna felt her jaw tighten and her fists clenching. The thought of her mistake made her even more upset. I don't want to talk about it, she said angrily. Just go away, both of you. 10 leaned in, his voice quiet. You know, Brenna, I left the wolf pack too, he confessed. Brenna's eyes widened in surprise. You did? Damon nodded, chiming in. Yeah, we both did. We were thinking maybe you could join Wolfpack B with us. Brenna hesitated, mulling over the offer. I appreciate it, but I don't think I can, she replied softly. Why not? Damon asked, concern etched on his face. Brenna sighed, her gaze falling to the ground. I don't want my lack of a wolf to cause any trouble for you two, she explained. And I am afraid of facing discrimination from the other members again. 10 and Damon exchanged a glance, understanding dawning in their eyes. We get it, Brenna, 10 said gently. We won't push you, just know the offer still stands if you ever change your mind. 10 assured her, his voice gentle. They expressed their understanding, but if you ever need something, just let us know, all right, 10 said, a soft smile gracing his face. Brenna nodded gratefully. I will. She felt touched by their words, her heart warmed by their kindness. Thank you, she murmured softly. With a sense of warmth, she hugged them tightly, planting a kiss on each of their cheeks before bidding them farewell. Dion. Excuse me, miss. I need to order something. A customer called out his hand up to signal to Brenna that he wanted to order. Oh, so sorry for the wait. Brenna apologized as she approached the customer's table. What can I get for you? The customer scanned the menu quickly before looking up at Brenna with a smile. I'll have the chicken Alfredo pasta, please, he said, handing the menu back to her. Brenna nodded, jotting down the order on her notepad. Chicken Alfredo, pasta coming right up, she confirmed before heading back to the kitchen to place the order. Brenna had to work part-time after classes to pay for school and other things. Sometimes she would return home late after her shift at the local diner where she works. Yeah, it was tough, she had to admit to herself. But the worst was that people at school kept embarrassing her. It wasn't fair, but she had told herself that she wasn't going to let them get to her. She had used the school communication system to defend herself against the gossip. She showed that she's proud to be an alpha's daughter, but there was someone who wasn't happy about that. Tina had always had issues with Brenna. She's the worst, but she told herself that she wouldn't let Tina worse to get to her. She was more better than that. Tina went ahead and reported Brenna's misbehavior in school to the owner of the diner where Brenna was working as a part-time staff, and used her family background to force the owner of the diner to fire her. I'm sorry, Brenna, but I don't think we will require your services anymore. The owner of the diner revealed a hint of reluctance in his voice. Brenna's heart sank as the weight of the situation hit her. But you can't do this, she protested, her voice filled with disbelief. I worked hard, sir. You can't just kick me out. It's not fair, she pleaded, hoping to change the owner's mind. The owner sighed, clearly conflicted by the situation. I understand, Brenna, but I've received some complaints about your behavior from someone I trust. I can't ignore them. Brenna's eyes widened in shock. But it wasn't me. I swear, I haven't done anything wrong, she insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. The owner hesitated, seeming torn between believing Brenna and trusting the source of the complaints. After a moment of silence, he spoke again. I am sorry, Brenna. I have to think about the reputation of my business. Feeling defeated, Brenna nodded slowly, her shoulders slumping in resignation. I understand, she said quietly, trying to hold back tears of frustration. As she gathered her belongings and left the diner, Brenna couldn't shake the feeling of injustice. She vowed to herself that she wouldn't let Tina's actions defeat her. She would find another job and prove that she was resilient, despite the obstacles thrown her way. But everywhere she turned to get a job close to school, she was rejected in the end. Bernada realized that news of her one-night stand with the man from the bar had spread throughout the school, destroying her reputation. Suddenly, the top student in the school was labeled as promiscuous, known for frequenting bars. Dear Miss Brennan, this is a friendly reminder that your rent is long overdue since on the 1st of the month. As per the terms of your lease, late fees will apply if your rent is not paid on time. We appreciate your cooperation and look forward to continuing to provide you with the best possible living experience. Sincerely, the landlord. Brina groaned as she read the message. I can't believe I am in this situation. She had been unemployed for months and had been relying on the money her father sent her to pay her rent. But now her father had cut her off and she was facing eviction. She had applied for dozens of jobs, but she couldn't seem to get a single interview. She felt like she was struck in a hopeless situation. She was out of money and she had no family to turn to. She didn't know what to do. She wandered the streets, feeling lost and alone. When she called her parents, she never expected the reaction she received. Her mother answered the phone, her voice sounding tense. Hello, Brina, she said, her tone cold. What do you want? Brina was taken aback by her mother's reaction. She had always been close to her mother, and she couldn't understand why she was acting this way. Mom, I just wanted to talk to you, she stammered. I am in a bit of a situation, and I need your help. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Brina's mother spoke, her voice low and stern. I am sorry, but I can't help you, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. You made your own choices, and now you have to deal with the consequences. I can't be your safety net. Brina was stunned. She never thought her mother would refuse to help her, no matter what. She felt her heart breaking, knowing that her relationship with her parents would never be the same again. I see, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words stung like a slap in the face. Brina had always been proud of her wolf lineage, and now to be treated this way was devastating. She struggled to keep her composure, but she couldn't hold back the tears any longer. But I'm your daughter. Mom, why are you treating me like this? Her mother sighed on the phone before she replied her. Yes, you were my daughter, but you aren't anymore because you disgraced your father by not having a wolf. Do you know how your father felt when he found out that you're wolfless? Brina was stunned. She had never thought that her lack of a wolf form would be seen as a disgrace by her parents. She knew that it was rare, but she had always thought that it was just a minor detail about her. She had no idea that it would have such a significant impact on her life. But I can't control that, she protested, her voice cracking. I didn't choose to be wolfless. It is not my fault. Her mother's voice was firm and unkind. What's wrong with you? Her mother said, her voice harsh and unforgiving. Did you really think you could just ignore your responsibilities to the pack and do whatever you wanted? You're a disgrace to us all, and I don't know how you could possibly expect us to just accept you back with open arms or even help you. Brina's heart sank as her mother's words hit her like a punch to the gut. She had never expected this level of rejection, and it was hard to take. She wanted to end the call, but she forced herself to listen. So don't you ever call me again, you hear me? Her mother yelled on the phone, and then ended the call. The line went dead. Brina was left alone with her thoughts. She felt numb, and tears threatened to spill over. She had never expected such harsh words from her mother, the one person who she thought would always be there for her. She didn't know what to do next. She sat down on a bench, stared at the sky, thinking about how her life had turned out. The perfect alpha's daughter, who many envied, was now homeless and with no support system. She felt like she was at a crossroads, and she didn't know which path to take. As she sat there lost in her thoughts, it suddenly hit her. She would call 10 and ask them if she could spend the night at their place. She pulled out her phone and dialed 10's number, her heart beating in her chest. She knew it was a long shot, but she had to try. The phone rang on, but no one picked up. Brina bit her lip, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill over. She knew she should have been more prepared for this, but she couldn't help but feel disappointed. As she was about to hang up, she heard a faint sound on the other end. Was someone there? She listened closely, and then she heard it again. Heavy breathing. She pulled the phone away from her ear and stared at it in confusion. What was going on? She put the phone back to her ear, and the breathing got louder. Suddenly, she realized what was happening. Tin and Damon were on the other end, and well, she didn't want to think about it. Oops, sorry. She quickly hung up the phone, her face burning with embarrassment. She couldn't believe she had called at such a delicate moment. What was she thinking? She decided to spend the night at a 24-hour convenience store, hoping that she would be able to find a place of her own the next day. As she lay on the hard floor, trying to get some sleep, she couldn't help but wonder what had gone wrong. She wished she could close her eyes and wake up, realizing it was all just a dream, and she had been asleep the whole time. Brina had a combat class the next day, and she seemed sluggish throughout. Ian, her partner, noticed her distraction. "Hey, Brina," Ian said, a concerned look on his face. "You don't seem to be your usual self today. Is everything all right?" Brina forced a smile, her eyes still downcast. "I am fine, just a little tired," she replied, not quite meeting Ian's gaze. Ian's frown deepened, sensing that there was something more going on than just tiredness. "You sure? You've been pretty quiet this whole class, and you're not usually like that. What is going on?" "Nothing, but thanks for asking," she replied politely, still not meeting his gaze. He wanted to ask further, but then he realized that it wasn't really his business. As they continued, Ian tried to learn about the relationship between Brina, Tin, and Damon. "So, Brene, what's your relationship with Tin and Damon?" "Nothing. We are just friends," she revealed. "Come on, Brina," Ian said, frustration evident in his voice. "There is more to the story than that. Tin and Damon are clearly more than just friends to you. I can tell by the way you look at them. So what is really going on?" Brina swallowed hard, beads of sweat forming on her brow as she dodged another of Ian's strikes. I can't tell you," she said, her voice shaking. "It is not my place to say." "Not your place?" Ian said, a look of disbelief on his face. "Is that all you are going to say?" Ian asked, his voice rising in frustration. "That they're your friends? I don't believe that. Something more is going on. I can feel it. Come on, Brina, talk to me." Brina let out a breath, her heart racing as she tried to find the right words. I just can't," she said, her voice breaking. "Please, just trust me when I say that I can't tell you more." Ian's eyes narrowed, his determination deepening. He could see that Brina was struggling, but he couldn't let his suspicion go. Not when it felt like there was something important at stake. "Fine," he said, his voice cold and hard. "If you won't tell me the truth, I'll just have to make you." Brina's eyes widened in fear, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she couldn't fight him anymore, and she was terrified of what he might do. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling. "Don't do this." But Ian was no longer listening. He was consumed by his own need for answers, and he was determined to get them. With a yell, he lunged at Brina. He attacked her, and since she wasn't herself, she couldn't dodge the attack. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Brina stumbled and fell to the mat, her muscles quivering with fatigue. She lay there, gasping for breath, as Ian stood over her, his expression unreadable. "You are pathetic, you know that," Tina said, her eyes glittering with malice. "You are a wolfless reject who has no business being here. You don't belong in this school, and everyone knows it. You should just leave now and save yourself the humiliation." Brina's heart sank at Tina's words, a lump forming in her throat. She knew Tina was only trying to hurt her, but the words stung nonetheless. "Please," she begged, her voice cracking. "Please, just stop." But Tina wasn't done yet. "No one wants you here, Brina. Just disappear." Those words hurt her deep that she tried to stand to fight Tina. With shaking hands, Brina attempted to stand, but her legs were too weak to support her. Just as she was about to collapse, Ian caught her, scooping her into his arms. "I've got you," he said, his voice low and soothing. "Let's get you to the infirmary." Brina felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, and she clung to him, burying her face in his chest. She could hear the other students whispering around them, but she didn't care. All she cared about was the fact that Ian was there holding her. For weeks after their breakup, Ian couldn't stop thinking about Brina. He replayed their relationship in his head over and over, trying to figure out where it had gone wrong. He also couldn't help but notice the whispers and rumors that followed her around the school. The rumors were especially bad in the wolf shifter groups, where people spoke of her as if she were some sort of pariah. But what really got under his skin was the fact that his own nephew, Demon, seemed to be overly protective of her. It made him feel jealous and possessive, and he hated himself for it. There was a day Ian saw Brina lying in a crumpled heap on the ground. His eyes flashed red. He thought that she must have been with Tenor Damon, and his anger boiled over. He had lost control of his power, and it had hurt Brina. He carried her to the infirmary, his heart pounding with guilt and regret. The wolf doctor, who tended to her injuries. Wolfless people need to be aware of the limits of their physical strength, the wolf doctor said, looking at Brina. You have to be careful not to overexert yourself, or you could collapse like this again. Brina nodded, her brow furrowed. She couldn't help but feel like the doctor was looking at her with pity. I understand, she said, her voice flat. The wolf doctor turned to Ian. And you, he began. You need to be more mindful of the wolfless people around you, the wolf doctor said, his tone firm but not unkind. You can't let your anger or your wolf instincts take control, or you could hurt someone, especially someone like Brina, who doesn't have the same defenses that you do. Ian swallowed hard, the doctor's words striking a chord within him. He bowed his head low in shame. Ian's wolf was a constant presence in his mind, always there to guide and advise him. But now, for the first time, the wolf's voice was stern and scolding. You are the alpha, it said. You are supposed to protect your mate, not harm them. Ian cringed at the words, knowing they were true. He had let his anger and jealousy get the best of him, and he had hurt the very person he was supposed to protect. He felt like a failure as a mate and an alpha. He turned to face Brenna, his gaze filled with regret. I don't know what came over me, Ian said, his voice raw with emotion. I never wanted to hurt you. I know that doesn't make it any better, but I just wanted you to know that. I am so sorry. Brina looked at him and smiled a little. It's okay, no hard feelings. She walked away, leaving him standing alone in the hallway. Ian felt a wave of guilt wash over him as he saw her walking slowly. He didn't know what came over him and made him react in such a brutal manner. He rushed to meet up with her. Brina, he called her name. She turned to him. Yeah, she answered. I don't know if you would like me to take you home, he said. Brina looked at him, her expression unreadable. She considered his offer for a moment, then shook her head. I'll be fine, she said. I can take care of myself, but thanks anyway. She turned and walked away, leaving him alone again. He stood there for a moment, watching her retreating figure. Are you going to let her go home alone in that state? His wolf asked him. Are you kidding me? His wolf demanded. She's hurt and upset. You can't just let her walk home away like that. I don't know what to do, Ian said, his voice raw with emotion. I offered to take her home, but she said she can take care of herself, so I didn't want to force her to do what she didn't want. You're clearly a dum-dum, his wolf growled. So because she said means you should give up. Dude, get your head together and go and meet her and offer to take her home again. Ian hesitated, his mind racing. Should he really go after her again? Was it worth the risk of pushing her away even further? What is the worst that could happen? His wolf asked, its tone now more gentle. If you do nothing, she'll go home alone and upset. If you try to help her, at least you'll have done everything you could. Isn't that better than doing nothing? Ian took a deep breath, realizing his wolf was right. He couldn't just stand by and do nothing. He had to at least try. With a new sense of determination, Ian turned and headed back in the direction he'd seen Brenna go. He wasn't sure what he would say to her, but he knew he had to at least try to help. As he rounded the corner, he saw her standing there, her back to him, her shoulders slumped. He approached her slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. Brina, he said, his voice soft and tentative. She turned to him, surprised that he came back again. Ian, she responded, clear he wasn't expecting him to come back. I am so sorry for what happened, Ian said, his voice thick with emotion. I really want to make up for my mistake, so please, let me take you home, I insist. Brina looked at him, her expression unreadable. Outright. Phoo. A sense of relief washed over him when she accepted to allow him to take her home. Where is your car? She asked, looking around in search of his car. My car is just over there, Ian said, pointing to a blue sedan a few yards away. It is not much, but it'll get us home. Do you want to grab your bag before we go? I don't have a bag, Brina said, a slight smile playing on her lips. I didn't really bring anything with me. I didn't think I'd be staying long. Ian nodded, understanding what she meant. I see, he said, a smile of his own forming. Well, let's get going then. It is a bit of a drive back. Thank you for going through the trouble to take me home, Brina said as they walked to the car. I know you don't have to, but I'm glad you're willing to help. I just feel so lost. Hey, it is no problem, Ian said, opening the passenger door for her. I am glad I can help, and I am sorry again for how I acted earlier. It was uncalled for. Brina smiled gratefully as she climbed into the car. Thanks. And don't worry, I know you didn't mean it. I know you were not thinking straight. Ian closed the door behind her and walked around to the driver's side, climbing in and starting the engine. He turned to look at Brina, their eyes meeting briefly in the dim light of the car's interior. You okay? He asked, concern etched into his features. Brina nodded, her eyes downcast. I am just tired, she said, her voice soft. I didn't expect today to turn out like this. I know, Ian said, putting the car in gear, and I am sorry I was part of the reason things went south. It's okay, she responded with a smile. He drove out of the parking lot and into the street. The car ride was mostly silent, the only sound the hum of the engine and the occasional clack of the turn signal. Ian stole glances at Brina, trying to gauge her mood. She seemed lost in thought, her gaze fixed on the passing scenery. After a while, he couldn't resist the urge to say something. So, where do you live? He asked, his hands on the steering wheel. Brina didn't know how she was going to tell him, but she realized that there was no point in hiding it. I stay in a convenience store. Wait, what? Ian exclaimed, his foot pressing hard on the brake. The car jerked to a stop on the side of the road. You are living in a convenience store, like in a store like a 7-Eleven. Brina could see the shock and disbelief in his face. She felt a wave of embarrassment wash over her, but she forced herself to continue. It is just temporary, she said, her voice small, until I can figure something else out. Ian was still trying to process what he had heard. He turned to look at her. I am sorry, I am just trying to wrap my head around this, Ian said, shaking his head. Why a convenience store? Why not a friend's house, or even a motel? I don't understand. Brina sighed, her shoulders slumping. I don't have any friends, she said, her voice barely audible. And I didn't have enough money for a motel, so I just found a place to stay. Ian was struck by the depth of Brina's loneliness. She had been living in a convenience store, for heaven's sake. That was no way to live. Brina, I wish you had told me, he said, his voice filled with compassion. I could have helped you. I could have found you a place to stay. Why didn't you say something? Brina's eyes welled up with tears. I don't know, she said, her voice breaking. I guess I was just embarrassed. I didn't want you to think less of me. There's nothing to be embarrassed about, Brina, he said, his voice filled with emotion. Then I guess you would have to come live with me. Brina was shocked by Ian's direct proposal. Her ex-boyfriend's uncle now invited her to live with him. I'm sorry, but I can't live with you, she replied, as she shifted uncomfortably on her seat. Brina, I know it is unexpected, but I hate seeing you like this. You need a proper place to stay, Ian said earnestly, his hand on the steering wheel. But, Ian, I can't just move in with you. You are Damon's uncle, Brina replied, her voice filled with uncertainty. Ian didn't deny it. Yes, I am. But what does that have to do with anything? You need help, and I want to offer it to you. But, Ian, I can't accept that. It would be too awkward, Brina protested, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. Ian paused, processing her words. I see, I understand. But does that mean you are with Damon? Brina turned to look at him, with a disgusted expression on her face. E-W-W, really? Ian's eyes widened in surprise. Whoa, no need to get so defensive. I was just asking. He held up his hands in a gesture of surrender. I just want to understand the situation. I am not trying to insinuate anything. Well, Damon and I are just friends, and that all Damon and Ten are very special to me, but nothing else is involved. Ian nodded. He seemed happy with that. Damon was just a friend. Brina noticed it and asked him, Does it matter to you that I am just friends with Damon? Brina asked, her voice cautious but curious. Ian considered the question, his expression thoughtful. I'd be lying if I said it didn't matter to me at all, but I trust you, Brina. And if you say that is all it is, then I believe you. It is not my place to question your friendships. Brina nodded and smiled slightly. Do you have any concerns, Brina? Ian asked, his focus on the road. Brina biting her lips nervously. Well, I'm worried about how Ten and Damon would react. Ian placed his hand on hers and looked at her. I understand your concern, but I'm sure they'll understand once they see how much you need the help. Brina frowned slightly. But what about privacy? I wouldn't want to intrude on your personal space. Ian smiled warmly. Don't worry about that. My place has enough room, and I can give you your own space. Plus, having you around would be great company. What about the financial aspect? She asked, her hands shaking. I don't want to burden you with expenses. Ian put his hand up in reassurance. Don't you worry about that. I've got that covered. I wouldn't offer if I couldn't handle it. Your well-being is more important to me than money. She sighed softly, feeling conflicted. I guess you've thought of everything, Ian. I really can't find a reason to reject your offer. He looked at her, a hopeful expression on his face. So, does that mean you're considering it? Brenna nodded, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. Yes, Ian, I'll consider it. Thank you for your kindness. Brenna has a strong personality and is used to being taken care of. The lack of sleep from the night before has already affected her. She just can't accept that she had a one-night stand with Damon's uncle, and now she has to live with him. She worries that Damon will make fun of her once he finds out. So when Brenna learns about Ian's generous offer to let her stay with him and his promise to keep it a secret from Damon, she thinks it is a good idea. When they got to the apartment, Ian packed his car in the garage and led Brenna into the apartment. It was a large, luxurious space with high ceilings and a view of the city skyline. The apartment was impeccably clean and furnished with sleek, modern furniture. It was clear that Ian took pride in his home. Brenna was impressed, but she tried to hide it. It is very nice, Ian. Thank you for letting me stay here. It is no problem at all, Brenna. I am happy to have you here. He smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Let me show you around. He gave her a tour of the apartment, showing her the kitchen, the living room, the bedrooms, and the bathrooms. Brenna felt overwhelmed by the luxury of the apartment. It had been a while she had lived in a place like this, and honestly, she had missed it. The convenience store was all cramped and uncomfortable. This is incredible, Ian, she said, her voice filled with awe. I can't believe you live here. It is not as impressive as it seems, Ian said modestly. I just work hard and try to make the most of what I have. Brenna smiled softly. So, let's sit down and discuss our terms and conditions for living together, shall we? He said, as he gestured for Brenna to sit. Absolutely, Brenna said as she took a seat on the couch. Where should we start? How about we sign a contract? He suggested as he brought out a pen and a paper out from the side drawer. Brenna's eyes widened. A contract, is that really necessary? It might seem a bit much, but I think it is important to have everything in writing, Ian explained. That way we both know what to expect from each other. Brenna nodded slowly. I see your point. So what kind of things should we put in the contract? Well, I will be responsible for your living and academic expenses, and I will be your partner in helping you build strength through training. So once you sign the contract, we will become contract lovers. So what do you think? Brenna considered Ian's words carefully. This was a big step, and she wanted to make sure she understood everything before she signed anything. So if I sign this contract, you'll be responsible for living expenses and my tuition, she asked. And you'll also be helping me with my werewolf training. Ian nodded. That is right. We'll both be committed to this arrangement until the contract expires. Does that sound fair to you? Brenna thought for a moment, weighing the pros and cons. On the one hand, it would be nice to have someone else paying her way and helping her train her werewolf abilities. On the other hand, she would be signing away her independence and putting her trust in someone she barely knew. After a moment, she made her decision. I'll sign the contract on one condition. Ian raised an eyebrow. And what condition is that? Brenna took a deep breath. I want a clause in the contract that says either of us can end the arrangement at any time with 2 weeks' notice. Ian considered her request and then nodded in agreement. That is a fair request. I am happy to include that clause in the contract. We'll both have the freedom to end the arrangement if we feel it is not working out. Are you ready to sign? Brenna took the pen and put her signature on the contract. As she handed the pen back to Ian, she couldn't help but feel a bit nervous about what she had just agreed to. But she also felt a sense of excitement about the possibilities that lay ahead. Brenna took the pen and put her signature on the contract. As she handed the pen back to Ian, she couldn't help but feel a bit nervous about what she had just agreed to. But she also felt a sense of excitement about the possibilities that lay ahead. I am glad we were able to come to an agreement, Ian said as he put the contract away. I think this will be a good experience for both of us. The two of them had signed a contract, making their relationship official. It was a strange arrangement, but they both knew it was for the best. Brenna got up, her hand clasped together in excitement. So, are you hungry? I want to make dinner. Sure, that sounds great, Ian said, his stomach growling slightly at the thought of food. Everything you need is in the kitchen, he said, pointing towards the kitchen. Okay, so you sit here and watch me make some magic, she said, excitement in her voice. That's nice. Do you cook? He asked, settling into a chair at the kitchen table. I love to cook, Brenna said, reaching for a pan. It is one of my passions. I like to experiment with different flavors and create unique dishes. Cooking is like an art form to me. Ian watched as she began to chop vegetables and prepare the ingredients for the dish. He was impressed by her skill and dexterity in the kitchen. You are quite good at this, he commented. Brenna smiled, feeling a sense of pride. Thank you. Well, I had to learn it if I wanted to survive in this world where there's a lot of competition. That is true, Ian said, his brow furrowing slightly. I suppose in your world survival is quite difficult. What was it like, growing up in a world where only the strongest and smartest survive? Bernada stopped chopping for a moment and looked at him. It was tough, she said, her tone somber. There was always competition and struggle. Only the fittest and smartest survived. Those who didn't adapt quickly enough didn't make it. That must have been a very stressful environment to grow up in, Ian said, his tone sympathetic. Yeah, when my parents realized I was wolfless, they considered me weak, and so I was banished from my pack, and now, here I am, she said as she continued chopping. Ian felt bad for her and wanted to say something to comfort her, but he decided that the best thing is to change the topic. So what are you planning to cook, as I can see you chopping some vegetables? Bernada took a deep breath and smiled, relieved that Ian had changed the subject. I am going to make a simple vegetable stir-fry. It is not fancy, but it is filling and nutritious, and it is one of my favorite things to cook. That sounds delicious, Ian said, his stomach rumbling again. I am looking forward to trying it. Can I help you with anything? Nope, she shook her head. You are in charge of the living expenses and all. I am in charge of cleaning and preparing you delicious foods. Fair enough, Ian said with a chuckle. That sounds like a good arrangement. I'll be the provider and you'll be the chef. Brenna laughed, feeling lighter now that the mood had shifted. It is a deal now. If you'll excuse me, I have some chopping to do. Ian nodded and watched as she prepared dinner. He thought about the situation they were in. It was strange, but there was something oddly comfortable about it. Maybe it was the familiarity of being around someone who understood his secret, or maybe it was just the relief of not having to hide who he was anymore. Whatever it was, Ian was glad to have Bernada there with him. As Brina chopped and stirred, she couldn't help but think about what had brought them to this point. She'd never expected to find herself in this situation, but she was grateful for it. She felt safe and cared for in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. As the smell of the stir-fry filled the apartment, Ian began to feel a sense of contentment wash over him. He realized that for the first time in a long time, he felt truly at home. Bernard set the table, and the two of them sat down to eat. They both dug in, savoring the food and the easy companionship. After a few moments, Bernard spoke up. This is nice, isn't it? She said, smiling at Ian. Just the two of us eating a simple meal, no expectations or pressure. Ian nodded, a warm feeling in his chest. It is nice, he agreed. It is nice to just be ourselves, without having to worry about what anyone else thinks. Brenna nodded, knowing exactly what he meant. Exactly. It is like we can just relax and be ourselves, without any judgment or criticism, just peace and understanding. Ian nodded, a smile on his face. Brene got up to clear the table. When Ian caught her arm, Brene turned towards him, her eyes questioning. Before you go, Brenna, Ian said, still holding her arm before she could leave to the kitchen. There is something I want to talk to you about. Brenna's looked into his eyes, curious as to what he wanted. What is it? She asked. Ian hesitated, seeming a bit nervous. Well, the truth is, I like the scent you had yesterday. I've never smelled anything like it before. Brina was taken aback by his confession. You liked my scent? She asked, her voice incredulous. Yes, I did, Ian admitted, his cheeks turning slightly pink. It was just so, I don't know how to describe it, it was just so alluring. I can't stop thinking about it. Brina was completely flustered by this point. She had never had someone compliment her scent before, and she was unsure of how to respond. Thank you, she said, her voice quivering. I am not sure what to say. He moved closer, his eyes locking into hers, his eyes speaking desire and passion. I don't know if you can allow me to smell it again.